has many claims to fame, but one of them is he's a retired veterinarian. So when plasma energy came along, it was kind of a no-brainer. It was all energy, as acupuncture is all energy, and so he dove in, and here we are to tell you more about it. So I'll let you take over.
Okay, what I have been studying for the last year are the teachings of Mehran Kesh, who is a nuclear physicist and a nuclear engineer. And he tried to work with governments around the world with the technology that he has developed over the last 30 years. And what this peace treaty thing you have in front of you, none of the governments around the world would sign that they would use this technology only for peace, not for war. So he gave up on working with the governments. A year ago, on October 26th, he started releasing all of this information to the public around the world. And it's all, everything you're going to see today and everything that he has put out to the world is accessible on these websites. The first one is his organizational website, keshfoundation.org. And from there, there are many sub areas, I would say. I'm not that much of a technology person, so I don't know all the right terminology, but there's a testimonial section where people around the world have used this technology and have put testimonials up about how they used it and how it worked for them. There's a blueprint section that shows how to make the few things you'll see here today and much, much more. There are lots of videos. There are probably 200 or more videos that are accessible from this website, and they're also on YouTube. So all this information has been put out to the public around the world for our use, and it is his intention to spread it peacefully and not to use it to make war. And most governments don't go along with that. So that he didn't give it to them exclusively, he's given it to everybody. And I'm going to read a quote from him that gives you an idea of what plasma technology is. It's a term that a lot of us, the only connection we have with plasma is blood plasma and transfusion. But there's much, much more to it than that. And I'll just read his a quote from him. It says here, "The simplicity of plasma energy is the understanding of the totality of the structure of the work of the universe. And now you can start understanding it. Water ran in the rivers for millions of years until one man started understanding the power of the water. Then we all had mills and everything came about in the Industrial Revolution with the water. Plasma energy is the water of the fields of the universe. And now we are just tapping into that water. It flows like water. It has winds that pull, and it has potential differences when you fall from a higher level to a lower level in magnetic gravitational field strength. It creates the same release of energy as you get in dams. It has the same power as a nuclear essence. It has everything which according to the time and our intelligence that we have tapped into, and it has given us energy. Now we tap into the knowledge of the universe, and this is where the difference is. I have been privileged in the last 24 hours to meet some of the most highly educational or educated nuclear physicists, a large number of them. It was a pleasure to see how easily nuclear physicists understand the plasma. They are understanding what I said. If you are a nuclear physicist, it is very easy to understand. I explained to them very simply. We fought with matter for thousands of years, and we couldn't manipulate it anymore. The maximum we got was making alloys. The maximum we got was the tangibility of being able to see something or hold on to something. In chemistry, we mix things together, and that is as far as we have gone. When we brought on the atom around 100 years ago, it was something new we had to accept. Because of the Hiroshima bomb, people got respect out of fear and not knowledge. Then we moved into nuclear and deeper into the science of the plasma of creation. This brought the insight, but in fact one of the biggest problems with the nuclear industry is that we are misrepresented. As nuclear physicists, we are heavily misrepresented. In a way, they gain the power of their station, and that has brought fear and respect. This should not be, and I explain this to the nuclear physicists very simply, that the plasma is different. It is peaceful, and it shows its power with no fear. We, as nuclear physicists, have to change the position that we are now respected out of the fear of what we bring. We are, I didn't read that right. This is written in italics and it's hard to read. We as nuclear physicists have to change the position that we are respected out of the fear of what we bring. Now we should be respected out of the pleasure we bring with plasma. Miran Kesh. So that's his approach to trying to tell people what plasma energy is. It's, for me, I vision it as a magnetic field. When most of us were in school, you saw a demonstration when you were in grade school or high school where they put metal shavings on a sheet of paper and put a magnet under it, and the metal shavings took a form. Well, you didn't see anything making those metal shavings take form. It was the magnetic field that drew those metal shavings into that form. To me, plasma energy is similar to a magnetic field that puts out an area of influence in which, in that field, things can be changed to be in balance with the field of energy. I hope that helps to understand what we're talking about when we speak about plasma energy. And over the last year, I've been working, getting things organized to make several different devices and applications for using this energy. The main reason I did that was because I have health issues myself, and I was hoping that some of the things I could develop would help with my health issues. And along the way, we have managed to help several other people with some of their health issues. One of the things that helped me was I've been diabetic for 33 years, type 1, which is the most severe. And because of that, I had kidney failure. And I now have a transplant. And that was 11 years ago when I got that transplant. I've been watching my lab reports that I have labs drawn every 3 months, and I've been watching them for the last several years, and my kidney function tests from the transplant have slowly, through the years, been getting worse and worse and worse and worse, until at some point that transplanted kidney will not work anymore. And as a result of the diabetes and the bad kidneys, I developed cataracts. Now, up until a year ago, I couldn't read anything without glasses. I couldn't see very well to drive. You noticed I just read that sheet with no glasses, and I don't have contacts. That's because of the use of plasma energy. My lab tests, the way they measure kidney function is they measure a molecule called creatinine. And creatinine clearance is how well your kidneys get rid of the molecule creatinine. And when they get rid of all that you need to, your lab tests read between 0.6 and 1.3. When it gets up to 2, that's getting dangerous. And when it gets to about 2.8, you're ready for a kidney transplant. Mine was, a year ago, mine was at 2.2. 6 months ago, it was at 1.7. 1 month ago, when I had labs drawn, it was at 1.5. Right after I had the transplant, it was at 1.6. So it's better now than it was right after my transplant. Okay? My vision has gone from not almost to the point where I was afraid to drive because I couldn't see well enough, to where now I can see very well, and I can see to drive with no problem. Yesterday I drove up to past Roundup up to the Missouri Breaks and back in about probably about 5 hours. And we were whistling right along, and I didn't have any problems at all. So that's some of the things that you're going to see today, and I just wanted to give you that brief overview so you know that there's value in this. And I come from a scientific background, scientific training, that you have to prove it. Well, to me, I've proven it to myself. I don't have scientific data and double-blind studies and studies on subjects with placebos and subjects on studies with no placebos and all of the scientific stuff. What I have is called anecdotal evidence. but it is evidence. So, with that, we'll, here's a sheet that we'll get started with. Do you want to pass these out?
Sure, and at any time, it's fine for people to break and ask questions.
Yeah, ask a question. Does anybody have any questions to this point?
I kind of do, Paul. I was wondering, the name plasma energy or plasma technology, what are you calling this?
Well,
And are you happy with the way it's been named? Does it describe, have plasma have anything to do with blood? Or
No.
is that,
well, it does in a way, but there's much, much more to it than just blood.
yeah. It's a term, it's a physics term for energy?
For a field of energy.
Okay. Great. Yeah.
Okay. This sheet that Lynn's passed out, it says plasmatic first aid. And that's our main focus today. There are lots of applications for plasma energy, and all of this was developed because of the space program and space travel. Kesh is a nuclear physicist and a nuclear engineer, and he's developing a space travel program right now in China, Africa,
Iran?
and Iran. Iran, by the way, has his technology. He's Iranian.
But
And-
they signed the peace treaty.
But they signed the peace treaty. And you're going to find this hard to believe, but there was a U.S. destroyer in the ocean traveling along, and they flew a plane over it with this technology and totally disabled it. All of the computers went down, and it was dead in the water, and it was that way for quite a while until they got things going again. But it was just a demonstration to show that if there's any kind of aggression or war, that they're going to put a stop to it. And also, with his technology, you saw on the news several, I don't know, how long ago would they bring that drone down?
Oh, the drone? I
Yeah.
think that's been a year or...
A couple of years ago, they brought down a U.S. drone over Iran with this technology. So what you're seeing today is only a very small amount of the totality of plasma technology that has been developed for space travel to be used for health. So this sheet here just says plasmatic first aid, and it goes over a lot of different stuff, things, most of which we're using. There are other applications. They're using it for to take place of the electricity you bring into your house, to lower your electrical bills by 80%.
Applications on the cars?
The cars, to increase your gas mileage by 50 to 80%. So there are lots of different applications. But this, on the first aid, that's what we're going to talk about today, is on the right side of the page, it says, make Gans. Now, Gans, G-A-N-S, is a acronym for gas in atomic nano state. And
Can you say that one more time?
gas, GASS, in atomic nano, NaNO state. These 3 bottles, I've probably got 15 different Ganses at home. But these that you see up here, this is carbon dioxide, CO2, accumulated in a solid nano state in the bottom here. This is copper oxide in the bottom. This is the compound CH3, which is the basis of sugar. This comes from iron, and the carbon, the CH3, C is carbon, H is hydrogen. The carbon comes out of the air, and the hydrogen comes from the water. These you use, along with some others, in different applications for health.
Can I interject how I would come in and borrow your jars?
Go ahead.
Okay, so when I've given some of you the gloves, or maybe a scarf, or maybe a pain pad, or maybe a piece pad, what I've done is I've taken the humble material, in most cases, of paper towel, and I'll pull off the top of here with a big syringe, like a horse syringe. And I've got all my squares laid out on a table, and I just dribble water over all the squares until they're soaked. And if I'm combining things, he's got several jars of combinations already, so he might have these 2 things already combined in a jar, or he might have these 2 things combined. So if I'm missing one, then I'll go to this jar and pull a little bit out and dribble it all over, and then they sit and they dry overnight. Then that's when I come in and this size that says piece on it is 1/4 of a Bounty towel. You know how they come scored so you don't use the whole towel. I use a half, I fold it over, and then I'm using 1/4 of it. Now that looks pretty humble, but one of the things I might compare it to, when you think of homeopathic medicines you might have tried, little teeny tiny pills that you put under your tongue and they actually do something. So this is the same. And somebody asked Mr. Cash, how long will this last? And he said, do you know the names of your great-great-grandchildren? And so what he means by that is the material may not last, and that's why I've always said if the plastic starts ripping, put the whole works in new plastic, you know, and just tape it up and keep using it. So the thing he has said also with the powder that has been made here, and there's a whole process that Paul will explain to you of how the powder ends up. But this has all been months in the making, and he said, never give away your powder. It will last for millions of years. That's pretty awesome. You know, so then you're sitting there and saying, well, okay, we got all these different powders, what are we going to do with them? So I'll let you take over. I wanted to mention, we've done gloves, we've done scarves, and we'll go into the uses for them later. Paul will explain this health pen a little later, and on to the other things we've done. So I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of how the end user uses it.
This, on the upper right-hand side, there's a bucket, shows a tub like similar to this, and it shows how to make these different Ganses. And it's self-explanatory. And it's easy to do. You just, like for CO2 here, you need a zinc plate and a copper plate, and the copper has to be nano-coated. And what nano-coating means is that it's got a, when you just leave copper outside or out in the weather, and it gets wet and it gets rained on and it dries and it's out there for a long, long time, it turns from a bright coppery color into a dark, almost black. Well, that's a nano coating. And the way to speed that up is I use a torch, and I take a copper plate like it shows in here, and just take a propane torch and hold the plate with a pair of clamps and heat it. And you heat it till it turns a rainbowy color, and you just move across it, and the nano coating follows right behind as it cools. And you get that coating on it, and then I take it and put it in a crock pot with lye, which is a drain cleaner, basically Drano, and pour boiling water on it, turn the crock pot on, and let it cook for overnight. And then the next morning I turn it off and let everything cool, and open up the crock pot a couple hours later and pull this thing out. And if you do this, you want to wear some rubber gloves or something so that you'll get black on your skin, and you'll also wear the nano coating off. And so you use those rubber gloves, and then you just put a little hole through it, or somehow attach the wire as it shows on here, put it in your tub, then you put some salt in there and water, and let it crank away, and you'll start seeing a film develop on the bottom of the tub. And depending on which metals you're using, depends on the different Gans that you will create. And depending on what you want to do with it, then you get the proper Gans for what you want to do and apply it however you're going to apply it. I know a lot of this sounds real vague, but if you go to these websites, you'll see videos on all aspects. Everything that's on this sheet is on probably 3 or 4 different videos on this website, and it's explained. Lynn types the transcripts for this website, and
The Transformacom.
And all of these transcripts from all of the workshops are on this website, and you can go there and read word for word what, it's not word for word, it's pretty close to word for word what Mr. Kesh has said. Now he refers to himself as Mr. He has several PhDs, but he says titles tend to separate people. Nobody is any better than anybody else. We are all equal. So he's Mr., he's not Doctor. Okay, so if you see these and it says Mr. Kesh, you wonder, if he's so educated, why don't they call him Doctor? Well, that's why. Now the water on top of these is what we use. We don't use the Gans. That's the power that energizes the water. Okay, and this is the part we use, it's just the water.
Now, show them what we do if we take it halfway down and use some of the water and add water, how it shakes up.
Yeah, say I use this much, and I know I'm gonna need more, so I fill it back up with water. Well, what happens is, you get this. Now that has to sit and settle probably at least overnight. And then you use the water again. And you can go on for a million years using the same Gans with new water and using the water for the applications you're going to use. I have several bottles of this, just in case I drop and break one or something, then I've always got more. And the making Gans here, it tells you everything to do. I mean, there's nothing that's a secret. It's all out. It's all out for everyone to do, and it shows you. And the next thing here is nano-coating copper, and it shows you how to nano-coat the copper. And it says here, I don't know if it tells you to use a torch, but anyway, that's the first way that they showed, that Kesh showed to do it was with a torch. And so that's what I use, the torch and the lye.
I'll interject here that I think the reason that this is so simplified is this is going around the world to a lot of countries where people don't have access to Lowe's, the hardware store, whatever. And so now they're going to have to use what they have that's available. And so I think the torch probably got left off for that reason.
Yeah, and he shows building a fire here. Well, that's for people who don't have access, like in Africa and certain parts of China where they don't have access to propane torches.
And one other thing I'll add here too is that I have a friend in Alaska that is working with the information, and she said, you know, I was trying to wrap my head around it. I found the children's videos where he's showing children how to do things, and she said, you get it, and it's a small dose at a time. And so she has utilized that method of learning more about it. And the one thing he says, because once in a while I'll see a video and I'll go, well, that's not exactly the way he said to do it. He says, everybody is right. Nobody is wrong with this technology. And if you see something somebody else did, it's, we're all learning from what we're doing. And some of you who say, well, that's wrong, we may just have learned something new that's a whole new approach to do it. So he said, nobody is wrong with plasma energy. It's, I don't want to say it's a foolproof energy, but in chemistry, it's a good thing I'm not in a chemistry lab, the way I cook. He cooks step by step, I cook some by some. So both ways will work with plasma energy. That's the point I wanted to make. So.
Now,
Yeah, Linda.
this is a stupid question. This will illustrate what you're saying. The crock pot, he didn't say whether it should be on high or low, right?
No, I didn't say it. It should
Does it matter?
It should be on high.
Yeah, I would have guessed that.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you want the steam.
Okay.
And are the things sitting right in it, or are they
No, they're
suspended?
elevated or hung by a wire over the top of the water.
Oh.
They're not in the water.
So is that somewhere in this info? I hate my crock pot,
It
I'd
says
rather use
caustic.
it to do this.
Nanocoat copper, number 2, caustic steam. It's right there.
Okay.
Jean, I just want to keep track that we're okay on your charging. Okay, all right. And we can break here in a few minutes so people can get coffee and stretch their legs.
Okay.
Okay.
One more thing, Lynn just went over making the patches. So you know that part, it's right on here. Now it says make and use the pain pen. Okay, where's that
Oh,
demonstration
yeah,
thing?
got it right here.
This is pain pen, okay? If you guys want to pass this around and you can look at it, it's very simple. It's just 2 coilings of copper wire with a stylus down the middle that have been nano-coated and soaked in Gans water, just the top part of this. Now that, when they aimed at a sore area like a knee, this is another example. I've got a bad knee. It's just through the years it's a little crooked. I was born that way, and through the years, because of the torque, it's developed pain. And I found this compound called Relive that I was taking a pretty heavy dose twice a day. It's a natural compound, different herbs and minerals and things that relieved that pain and made it where I could walk without any. And then I was off of that for quite a while. For some reason I couldn't get access to it. And then my knees really got bad. I could hardly walk. Well, when I started using Kesh technology, by using the pain pen and by drinking some of this Gans water, just the water, not the Gans, that pain in my knee is gone. And I still have some Relive, but I don't have to take it anymore. And what I've done is I've made a Gans out of it, and I've put it on this food station that we fill with water and drink the water. Well, I'll get into that more in a bit. So, question?
Did you just write a note to your mom with this, or you put it in here? or what?
You point it at the sore area. Yeah.
Do you want to show I put the bottle right there.
Now this is a demonstration of the plasmatic field that comes off of that pen, and it's from that exact pen that I'm passing around. What I've done is I took water and put it in this bottle, and I put in a very small amount, maybe 10 grains of potassium permanganate, which is a purple colored compound that dissolved in the water for the reason of showing the plasmatic field. Now all of this water was totally purple, the whole thing. I took that pen and stuck, this is an old olive oil bottle it's got a little like grate in the lid, and I stuck that pen in there, just maybe that far, not all the way down, just the tip of it, and it was sticking up like this. I put it in the freezer and left it overnight, and the next morning this is what I had, and it shows the plasmatic field And if you look at it with the light behind you can see the feathery rays of plasmatic field coming off of the center of this frozen mass. So I'll pass that around.
We did the same thing with everything we made. So if we made, well, I didn't do it with the scarves because I knew it already worked. But when I was making these, or some of the larger pain pads for knees and backs and stuff, we would take each size or each type and put it in a pan of water, the purple water, and freeze it overnight. Got the same look with the purple gathering to the center, to where the main focus of the energy was, and then the shimmers or the feathers coming off of it. So it's pretty fun to work with this. Paul had done some cups at one point, and I have, this is my water cup, but inside, this is a thermal cup, so he pulled them apart, and under the, between the plastic and the inside is a nano-coated copper plate. And then you put a certain Gans on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then put it together, and so that's my drinking cup. We did the same thing with all the cups we did. Well, let's put the water in it and see what happens. We put the whole works in the freezer, took it out, and it all came out looking just like what you're passing around now.
Is that water in that you drink, is that for memory or energy, or what's the purpose of the
All
water?
of the above.
Okay.
I'm in the Damn It, I'm Not 20 club. So I figure we'll take the shotgun approach, and whatever we can cover, we will. So, but I will make a distinction, and we'll make it again later. When we do the pads with pain or, say, an infection, there would be copper oxide that would be added to whatever I'm putting on the pads, okay? But if you're using a pad for memory, headaches, fuzziness, whatever, insomnia, you don't use this element above the chin. And that's according to what he has to say. And there's some exceptions to it. If you were working with eye drops, for example, you might have a drop in a vial of this big with many drops in it. So, so I'll let you go back to it, but I just wanted to give you that distinction.
Tracy wanted to get a shot of this pain pen, and what we have here is just like a 3/4 inch plastic tube that you get at the hardware store, and I've got a plug of hot glue in the top, and then I cut 4 angles in the base and put a zip tie around it and put hot glue there to seal up the bottom to keep it from falling out of the tube. And I had my first time I did this, it was in a glass test tube. I dropped it on the floor and broke it. And so I put it in this plastic, and this wears very well. You can drop it and then, you know, it doesn't get hurt.
What's inside the tube?
Inside this tube is 2 coilings of copper wire, one inside the other, with a solid round piece of copper wire in the middle. The whole thing is nano-coated and soaked in CO2, copper oxide, and zinc Gans. And that's very effective for
Show how you would hold it on your elbow.
localized pain. Now, if you have a sore elbow, you don't really touch your elbow with it. You just hold it back here a little bit like this, and the plasmatic field emanating from the end of this is what puts the healing energy into your sore elbow. You can see from this demonstration of the field of plasma that comes out of this, that it goes a long ways. So, you know, even if you hold it 6 inches back, you're still going to get the benefit of the plasmatic field. So,
And some of the, I know my friend Joyce up in Canada, or Alaska's making these, and I think hers are just a little bigger than this, but she's using a smaller copper wire and smaller copper coils. And a comment we had from a friend in Florida that we sent one of these to was that he had one of the manufactured ones that looked almost more like a fat ballpoint pen, and he said, wow, I'm going to tell you, I think the strength out of these that Paul is doing is about twice. But again, it's just a bigger application.
So it's more effective because it's of the size of it?
I would
As
say
opposed to
size,
commercial?
and maybe you should talk about intention.
one of the things that Mr. Kesh stresses, and he stresses very hard, is the intention that goes along with the use of these plasmatic devices and the Gans. And that when you use these, you put your intention for healing, you project it from yourself to the device, to the sore area, that it's your intention that you're no longer going to have elbow pain. And he said that's very important because that sends a plasmatic energy also to the interaction of the pen and the sore elbow. Now, I have read in other physics, about other physics experiments using the use of intention to influence light rays. And this is written up in physics journals. These guys who try to determine if light is a particle or a wave. And it can be either a particle or a wave, depending upon the intention of the experimenter, the guys who is doing the experiment. And they showed how the thoughts of the guy doing the experiment influenced the results of the experiments with light. And this is the scientific fact. It's not somebody's imagination.
Would this be a cousin, first cousin, or whatever, to telepathic ability?
I guess you could say that. I don't know for sure, but
It sounds like,
it sounds like
Yeah.
it is. Yeah.
yeah, in that general field or
Yeah.
area, that's what it sounds like.
Well, and the other thing with intention is if you've read or looked at the Messages in Water from the Japanese scientist Emoto, and this has been out for several years, but he took different containers of water and put messages on them: love, I hate you, joy, nice day, whatever. And then he took I guess you'd say a slice so he could look at it under the microscope and photograph it. And what he got, love looked like a snowflake. Hate was a black, dark blob. And there were all kinds of shapes in between. So that was another demonstration of what does a message, what happens to a container full of something with a message attached to it. And so one of the things that Paul's been mindful of is what is his intention when he's making these things?
And having had scientific education, we are not taught to put your intention into the results of your work. But with this technology, it's very important. Mr. Kesh says, do not use these devices if you have foreign material in your body, like in a joint or a plate in your head. Don't use anything on your head. Or like an ankle replacement, it's not advised to use any of the Gans patches or the pain pen or anything on there, because it stimulates the growth of bone, and if you get the growth of bone with an implant, it'll force the implant out.
Whoa.
Same true for just like staples, or I've got staples in my knee for my anterior cruciate, so I can't use it there either.
No, an anterior cruciate is a ligament repair.
Yeah, but I've got
Staples.
bone on bone as well in the knee, and so I didn't know whether or not I could use the patches because there are staples below for the anterior cruciate. I know I can't use it there, but how about on that? I've got staples in this knee down.
It's my opinion that you can, because bone growth in there is not going to alter what those staples do. Because are they stapling the ligament?
Yes.
Okay, then it's not going to alter that. They're not actually in the bone, right?
Yeah, they are in the bone.
Okay, if they're in the bone, it may force them out of the bone.
Okay.
So I would say don't do it, but I'm not an MD, and I can't give you medical advice. By the way, all of this stuff here is not medical advice. This is what other people have done, and this is the teachings of Kesh Foundation. I'm just a mouthpiece repeating what is already all over the internet. And I'm specifically not telling anybody to use this as a medical device or to treat as a medical application. If you learn about this and you're using it and you make it and use it on yourself, that's your choice. But I'm not telling you to do that.
Can you send an email to cashfoundation.org and ask them to answer questions like this?
Yeah, there's a place on there for does the testimonials have questions?
I'm not sure if they do or not, but I think you can just do contact
Okay.
and see. And I would also mention that the sheet that was done here came out of the doctor's workshop. And Kesh has a weekly doctor's workshop with doctors from around the world who come on, and they're developing protocols and coming back with what they've used on their patients. And so then what happens is, I got this sheet this morning. I already had this one printed up, and I was talking to one of the guys with the education team, and he said, "Oh, did you get the new first aid sheet?" And I said, "No, I didn't." So he sent it to me just this morning, right before we came over. And this was put together by the doctors group. And so these are the applications that have come out of Kesh's teachings to the specific doctor's workshop. And it is not a workshop that's available to the general public. So, Joe?
So when Kent's asking questions about the pen or the pad, is it the Gans water, the food station, all that is the same thing?
I was going to kind of add something after what you had to say, and that would be the water that you drink would benefit your well-being. In other words, if you're using the pads, as I've told a lot of you to take 2 pads and sandwich them on a pitcher, a clear glass or a clear plastic pitcher, and put your water in there and just drink that water, you know, all day long. Some of you have used it on your plants and had awesome plants from it. And that's going into a general well-being. And what he has said is your body will only take what it needs. So you're not going to overdose on something in the water because your body only pulls what it needs. The rest is gone.
So that wouldn't affect anything of Kent's, the pads, the pen, the water, and the food station. Just the pen would affect him?
Probably the direct application right onto a joint.
But not
Wouldn't
the
you say,
water?
Paul?
Right, but not the water. You can drink the water.
Yeah, and there's some research going on in Africa where one of the scientists was helping a couple with AIDS. And I don't know how familiar you are with AIDS in Africa, but they have what they call no-hope camps. And the people with AIDS it's like leprosy colonies. They are separated away from the population. But anyway, this couple had it, and one of the scientists working with it said, "Here's your water," and it would have been the water from this without the powder in the bottom that he put together, and he said, "I want you to wash with it, I want you to drink from it, I want you to clean with it, I want you to wash your clothes with it," and kind of a total immersion type of thing. And the doctors treating the AIDS came to the house to see what kind of medicine these people were using because they were getting better. And they said, "We're not using any medicine, we're just drinking water." So there's a tremendous effect, and some of the research that the medical team is doing right now is, I believe they're going to come up with some treatments that are going to bring results in anywhere from 5 minutes to 3 days for some pretty severe things. So that's what he's putting out in the general Thursday workshops. So I'll let you take over. One anecdotal thing, we have our kids all have the water availability. And so we have 2 boys that are on cross country. They both did their personal best times this last week. Grandkids, I'm sorry. Yeah, personal best times. On the cross-country team, and one of our grandsons, his time was better than his older teammate who placed in state last year. And I'm going, gee, maybe it has something to do with it. You know, and all I do is just say, "Drink the water, you guys, just drink the water, drink the water." It's just grandma talking, "Drink the water, did you drink the water?" But one of the other things that I'll tell you is there is a change in energy levels, and it's been a very, very long time since I heard Paul say he was getting old. We got rid of the old talk.
Sure.
I have a question on the same topic. Now, if you had a knee replacement, could you use the patch on, say, your shoulder or somewhere else? That doesn't affect your knee if you're using it in a different part of the body?
Yes, that's my understanding, yes. On the same note Lynn was talking about, since probably 3 or 4 months after I started using this technology and drinking the water and all of that, I noticed that I was sleeping less. I used to sleep 8, sometimes even 9 hours a night. Now I'm good. I wake up after 6.5 to 7 hours and I can't go back to sleep, so I get up. So I don't sleep near as much. I have much more energy. I can see better, and I remember stuff better. And it's like I've backed up 10 or 15 years in age. Now, I'm not saying that this is the fountain of youth, but it certainly helps to get rid of some of the symptoms of old age. I'm 76, and in my lineage, that's about the age of death on both sides of the family. But at this point right now, I'm not feeling that way at all.
Cool. I have a question, Paul.
Okay.
On the Cash Foundation, and you mentioned them having a commercial pen. If a person wanted to contact them, could a person purchase different products that they have?
Yes.
I know that's not why you're here, to sell their products, but that's a natural question.
On their website, they have an area that says shop Cash Foundation or something to that effect. It's on the toolbar up on top at the website, and you can go to the area on there where they're selling stuff, and they've got books, they've got the paint pen, they've got the MagGrav unit, where it's a magnetic gravitational energy unit that cuts your electrical bills from like 50 to 80%, and now they're working on a solid state unit that will totally put you off the grid, where you draw no electrical power off the grid. That will be released in the next month or so. And it'll be on the website, and the nice thing about it is the blueprint will be there. If you want to build it yourself, you can build it at home yourself. Or if you want to buy it from them, you can buy it from them. So yes, all that stuff is there, and there's nothing hidden. It's all out in the open. There are no secrets. Everything is available. All you have to do is go to that cashfoundation.org website and wade through it. That website is hard to navigate, I'll tell you that right up front. But once you get in there and start learning where things are, then you can go back to it and find what you're looking for.
Question over with Linda.
I hate to do this, I feel like we beat it to death, but I have one magic knee, it's been replaced. I'll put the other one together with bubble gum before I go through that again. But my question is real simple. I want to steal that pen, the paint pen. The knee that was replaced, it's fine. I don't even know what's in there. I think it's plastic and metal both.
Okay.
But this knee, the one that held this one up for 40 years, is killing me. Now, if I wanted to use that pain approach on this knee and this shoulder, which happened the same day, would it affect this stupid thing?
No, you can use it.
Okay, and I have a titanium clip in my head. I'm a real piece of work. You wouldn't mess with that either?
No, but don't use anything on your head. Any of this
Yeah,
stuff,
my head's in enough trouble, I won't.
Duh.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, those patches should help on that knee.
Yeah, I need to buy the ace banding. So,
And we'll go over this in a minute, but drinking a lot of water from this
yeah,
will also help.
I've been drinking the water.
And the last things we'll go over here is on the left side of this sheet, it says they use Gans of, and on the far left it has CO2, copper oxide, CH3, zinc oxide, calcium. And it tells you the different uses for these different Gans waters. And remember, you only use the water off the top. The amino acid referred to at the very bottom, if you make Gans, you'll notice that after a few days, you start seeing an oily substance on the very top, on the water floating on top. You collect that with a spoon. That's the amino acid. That's what makes the connection with the human body and the Gans. Because human bodies are made from amino acid, which is a building block of protein. So all the protein you have in your body is made from amino acid.
So you don't want to remove it?
No, it's useful.
Yeah, that sits on the top.
Yeah, and a lot of the applications of this stuff, as you learn more about it, is you add amino acids. So you take that amino acid off the top, put it in a container of water, and you can add a few drops as called for to different things that you make up for different uses.
Before you go much further, I wanted to mention Kesh Foundation Arizona Manufacturing, because they just set that up.
Is there a website?
I think they're in the process, but it means that we don't have to ship things from Italy.
Yeah, there's a manufacturing plant for the paint pens, the the units to decrease your electrical bill. They call them MagRav units.
Health pads.
Health pads, all the different applications they manufacture there and have them for sale. So previously, you had to order from Italy, have it shipped from there, which took a long time and cost a lot more. Whereas now they'll come from Arizona.
Cool.
So they're in a suburb right out of Phoenix, Tempe, I believe, isn't it?
I think so.
And right underneath the uses of the Gans is, it shows how to nano coat with a torch. And then there's different systems of using the Gans water. And one thing that I do is I put this carbon dioxide Gans water in a little spray bottle, have it on the counter in the bathroom, and after I get out of the shower and towel off, then I take that Gans water and spray my body with just a light mist.
Really?
And as I'm shaving, I let it dry, and then I get dressed.
What's your hoped for effect in doing that?
It puts a plasmatic field, the healing plasmatic field in your whole body. And as you know, with diabetics, you have skin issues. And I used to itch a lot, and I used lots of lotion. You know, after every shower, I would cover myself with lotion so that my skin wouldn't itch. Now I don't use any lotion.
Cool.
Yeah, I spray with that light mist, and that's it.
Now, is the water that we are making with the 2 patches on the glass that we've been drinking, is that water can be put in a spray bottle?
Yes,
For the, that's the same stuff, that's what I was gonna
Right.
ask you. Okay,
yeah.
that you spray with.
And that has no negative effects on anything.
No, it's just the CO2 water. The one that has a bad effect on your head is the copper oxide.
And there aren't any patches.
Some of the patches have copper oxide on them that go on knees. Copper oxide makes the connection with the muscle and the tendons of your body.
So how do you know if that's in the pad that you have or not? Like the pads that we got from you, they have,
If the pad says used for pain,
It has
it has it. Or if it had a little X, put this side next to your knee or whatever, it has it. If it says peace, it doesn't have copper oxide.
so we're not supposed to use
Used
that
for
for
pain.
replacements or implants of any kind.
Right.
Right.
Right, but copper oxide has the effective use as far as with the malaria and all the things. They're cleaning up rivers in Africa, they're getting a handle with malaria, Ebola, E. coli, AIDS. Now you're going to have the copper oxide integrated in.
Well, isn't that in the station also?
Yes, but now you're back to intention. So what is your intention when you pull from the station?
What do you mean station?
This is a plasma energy station.
Oh, station,
Yeah.
okay.
I'll go over this because, see, we've got a lot of things that refer to it. This is a clear plastic tub. In these vials is the water of the Gans of 16 different Ganses that I made at home. And it's just the water on the top put into these little vials, which are then hot glued onto the side of this tub, and then I put a strip of plastic tape over the top just to hold them in place so they don't get jarred and get knocked off. And then Lynn's got some bubble wrap around here just for traveling.
So when Lynn touches it, we don't end up with plasma fields instead of plasma water.
Then you fill this with the water out of your faucet, or if you use a water filter, take the water out of there and fill this up to about an inch from the top so you don't splash it out. Let it set overnight, and these vials on the side permeate the plasmatic field of the Gans in these vials into the water.
Whoa.
Then you drink this water out of here. Two of these vials are food Gans. And what we did was for 21 meals that we had at home, we took a couple of tablespoons from each meal and put it in a little plastic bag and froze it. After we had 21, or what we thought was enough, and it turned out there was 21, I put it all into a tub like this, stirred it, mashed it up real good, run it through a blender, and put it in here. Then added sodium hydroxide, which is lye, and water, and let that set for probably a month. I'd stir it up every once in a while, and just to agitate everything. And then after that sat for a month or so, I rinsed it probably 10 different times with filtered water. We use a Berkey water filter at home just to clean the chlorine out of our drinking water. And rinsed it, and what you do is you put the rinse water in, stir it up real good, and then after it settles, you pour the rinse water off, leave all of the material in the tub, do it again, and again and again until you get all of the sodium hydroxide out. And the way that I know I've got it all out of there is I take a litmus paper, dunk it in there, and when it comes up neutral at 7, pH 7, then I know that it's all of the sodium hydroxide is out of it. And then take that water and put a little bit in one of these vials, and along with all of the other Ganses that we've made, and fill it up with water, let it sit overnight. Say there's an emergency of some sort, we don't know what it might be. And transportation is cut off, they can't get the semis into Red Lodge, there's a washout or whatever, or there's no gasoline, and the semis can't travel. Or there's some type of a disaster and you don't have any food. Pretty soon everyone's going to shoot all the deer and the turkeys that are running around town. And there's not going to be anything to eat. Well, Lynn and I wanted to see if drinking the water from this would give us the nourishment we needed without food. So we started using it for that purpose, and 3 times a day we drank a little scoop, probably 2 ounces of this water in a glass, and then filled it up with filtered water, drank that for our meals. We did that for 3 days with no hunger. No lack of energy. We even started feeling better. So then we started eating 1 meal a day. We've been doing that for 3 months now. We eat 1 meal a day with no loss of weight.
Darn.
That's interesting.
When we started out, I lost a few pounds, which was obviously just extra fat that I didn't need. And then my weight leveled off, and I've been the same for the last 3 months. We eat once a day, and we don't have to eat that often, but there's a social aspect of food that we miss, so we have 1 meal each day, and sit and converse and, socialize with each other. But it gives you everything you need to sustain yourself at any time that you may feel that you need to do that. If there's an emergency or whatever happens and you can't get the food that you're used to getting, you can use this and you will not starve to death. And I know that's true because I've done it. And you know you haven't eaten because your stomach is empty, but you don't have hunger pangs.
Really? Wow.
You don't have a lack of energy. You don't get lightheaded because your blood sugar drops. That does not happen. It gives you what you need, and you can function as well as or better than you did with a belly full of food.
Will Arizona have that?
No, you got to make that yourself.
I want to add a couple things about this. We have a son who got, well, we were invited to dinner and we hadn't eaten for a few days, and he was going,
all right, let's review this. He says, you know, you guys are a little over the top sometimes. And I said, yeah, it's okay. We're going to sit down and eat with you guys this meal, which we did. And he came by a couple days later with our grandson, and he said, okay, I want to talk about this thing again. So we talked about it and showed him and everything, and it was before he got one at his house. And he said, well, I'm a little hungry. And I said, well, look at the menu. What would you like off of it? And one day when we were doing this, I was a little hungry in the afternoon. I said, I think I'm going to have a little something. So I got the scoop of water and everything. And Paul says, well, what do you have? And I said, I'm having a banana split. What are you having? So my son is there and he says, well, I like the sound of this popcorn you've got here on your menu. So we fix him a glass and he's sitting here drinking it and he goes, is this supposed to taste like popcorn? I said, no, but you're supposed to feel like you had the popcorn. So, but I do have to say the cultural aspect of when we started this whole thing, and it was mostly more of an emotional side of you didn't get food out of the pantry or the fridge, you know, you didn't fix it, you didn't smell it, you didn't chew it. It was all that aspect. And when you're busy and you go, oh, I got to take a break and go have my lunch, you know, then we'll go in and drink a glass and then go back to what we're doing. And you don't even notice. You know, you're not getting the lightheaded stuff and everything like that. And then I use it as I want. If I go and there's a snack somewhere, I may say, you know what, I'm going to enjoy what's in front of me. So there's one more aspect of this that I want to mention. When we take a glass and we put it in a wine glass, we sit down like we're going to have a meal and we bless it. And Paul added to that blessing, and I share.
We extend the nourishment of this meal to all of those worldwide who are in need of sustenance and are willing to accept it.
Okay, so it's, again, we're talking an energy thing here. Well, I don't have to keep it right at my house. I can send it out wherever it needs to go. I can have some and somebody else can have some if they want it. So again, this is getting into the intention side of things. It may be a bit of a stretch for some thinking. We studied a lot of Neville Goddard, who was a teacher in the 40s and 50s. And his whole thing was teaching you to think in the outcome as it already happened successfully to what you wanted. In other words, what was the outcome I wanted for the workshop? The workshop was well attended, everybody learned a lot, and everybody had an enjoyable experience. It is done. Okay. Now the reason I say it is done, we added that after watching Greg Braden on a video showing an Oriental healing team, and they had the screen up of a woman with inoperable bladder cancer, and you could see the tumor, and this team started chanting, and you see this tumor shrinking. And at the end of the video, what it was the intention of the team, the intention of the patient, and what the team was chanting was, it is done. So you put your outcome out there and it is done, and that's what we do on a daily basis. So anyway, I wanted to share that aspect because there is a little bit of humor in our lives. You know, your kids twist your head for many, many years, and you get a chance to twist back sometimes.
Okay, on the lower left here, the last part of this shows the different ways to use the Gans water. And number one is the spray that I already went over. The patches, drinking, inhale. Now, if you put put some of this Gans water in a container and just breathe the air off of the top. The doctors say that it opens up the lungs for people with such things as COPD, tuberculosis, things like that, to clear up the lungs where you can breathe a lot better.
Didn't they show an asthma pin that was made that had that same concept?
Yeah, on the websites, they have a device that has, it's like this, but there's another tube on the outside of it, and there's another tube on the inside of it that you breathe through that gathers the plasmatic field into the air that you breathe and takes it into your lungs, takes that field into your lungs. And that it's on these websites.
What's it called?
What's that?
The thing that you breathe, what is that called? Do you know?
For asthma?
I don't know if there's a name to it. It's just for the application is for asthma.
COPD or asthma?
Right. Any lung malfunction.
Okay, thanks.
Paul, could you put that in like a nebulizer? With those,
Yes.
how they have like oxygen treatments that you could put a little bit in the bottle. Usually they put albuterol or something in it.
Right.
And then it nebulizes that.
Right.
You breathe in. So could you do the same with that?
Yes.
Why don't you repeat the question in case would it catch on the recording, Tracy?
It might, he's pretty close, but
Okay, all right.
Bath. Down here for, down lower on the right it says radioactive contamination. You can use this CO2 water for decontamination if you're subject to radiation. Say there's a Fukushima disaster and you got radiated with some of the stuff that came out of there. These baths will clear up that and you won't have long developing side effects.
And by the way, this was used to clean up Fukushima.
They use this technology in cleaning up Fukushima.
Is that cleaned up now, or are they still doing it?
They may still be working on it, I don't know. But I think it's pretty well cleaned up. The doctors are having people stand between two panels with copper coils on each panel coated with different Ganses to heal different processes that are going on with people, such as cancer. They're actually getting rid of cancers with this technology. They claim that one of the doctors, I think he's in Washington State, has claimed to have had success with diabetes, and they're treating all types of different diseases. And some are if you make, say, large pads, you can put one over the top of you when you go to bed and one under your bottom sheet and sleep between them. That will give you the plasmatic field all night long. And then this last one, number 7, is rotate. That little ball you see on top of there is on top of a small electric motor that spins it. And this projects a plasmatic field that sends out whatever type of Gans or Gans mixture, the field from it that you have in that ball. If you want to project peace, you use carbon dioxide and zinc oxide. Gans water, that projects peace. And there's different applications. So down below here, it goes through several different scenarios and which of these Gans situations that you use for like skin infections, broken bone, head or brain injuries, water purification, radioactive contamination, nuclear exposure, internal injuries, electromagnetic pollution, shield. I haven't seen that one before.
When you use the patches, do you have to do it in pairs? Do you do two?
You don't have to, but it works better.
And one thing I'm going to, I'll go over too is we're doing a gradient now. So a larger patch to a smaller patch. Or what I've done with these is I simply doubled over, let me see what I did here. In this set, I would say, if you're treating for, head insomnia or something, you put 2 on one side and 1 on the other. You have a gradient, and so the energy has to balance between them. And that's why we're going to that. This is something that just came out with the doctor's workshops in the last couple of weeks. And one of the things I suggested with this, this is a set of pads that I did that said, for various things, maybe insomnia or whatever. And you have 3 pads. Place 1 above the ear on one side of the head and 2 above the ear on the other side. Now you're getting a vision of having something taped to your head, right? No. I figure the easiest way to do this is to take a scarf and put the pads in between them, or like a headband, and put 2 on this side and 2 on the other, and just you could tie the scarf like a headband to hold them in place. Paul has, you can see his hat sitting over there on top of the clothes rack. He throws a pad in the top of his hat.
You can see the pad sitting in my cap.
So you do the pad instead of the scarf?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got the scarf, but he put the pad in.
Same effect?
Same effect,
Yeah.
same effect. And so if you, for some, I've done the scarf, and the whole idea with the scarf originated with my mother, who's 96 but still has a certain amount of vanity, and I know she's not going to wear paper towels on her head. So the idea was I treated the scarf so that it could be worn like a babushka. You know, you just put it on and tie it behind, okay? For a guy with a scarf, he could just take the scarf and put it inside the cap. And I have one acquaintance who says, well, I look like a Bedouin, but I don't care because it's helping. So the way he wears it on his head is what he chose to do with it. So I take these scarves and I treat them and just, hand them out. I'm always looking for little squares at the senior center, and then we have them to hand out.
We'll take this home.
There's a lid to it.
There's a lid to it, just to keep the bugs from falling in there. And you can start using this at home. The rest of you who don't win it can make this yourself. All the information is on this sheet and on this website. There's no secrets, it's all there. All you have to do is go in there, get it, and make what you need.
Now, when we started making these, we started with a bigger one, and then we found a really nice size out at the dollar store, believe it or not.
You can't get any water. Then what do? All you have to do is to breathe the plasmatic field that's in this tub. Inhale it. You get the same effect as drinking the water. It nourishes your body.
And if the water went out of the vials, you'd
The
still have the
plasmatic
fields.
field is still in the vial. If for some reason you lose the water out of these, you still have the same plasmatic field in the vial.
Why is the water different than the pad?
Different than what?
Some you can put on your head, some you can't put on your head, some you can't put it because of a knee replacement. Some-
Because if it contains copper oxide, I don't know the reason for that, but you're not supposed to use it on the brain.
So there is no copper oxide in the station?
Well, you
There
yeah.
is, but that's where intention comes in. You intend this to nourish your body and not to harm your body.
Okay.
Your body takes what it needs, and what it doesn't need, it doesn't take.
I see.
And I don't know why that doesn't apply to the copper on the brain. But for some reason, Mr. Kesh, and I'm sure he has good reason for that, says do not use copper on the brain.
So the pad in your cap is different than the pads that Lynn gives us, right?
Right.
If the pad I gave you says memory on it,
That's what's in my cap.
that's what's in his cap. If the pad says peace, that's what's in the cap. If the pad has it says do
Blue X
not,
or a red X?
yeah. A lot of them had that, and then I changed the label because I thought, why am I doing this X? I don't need to do this. But it will have a message on it that you know it's not memory or peace. And
So the pads that we have, we can't use.
you may have both kinds, Joe. Let me get one here.
The X one, what was the X one for?
Okay, the X one is for like elbow pain, knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain, and
But
here's
not
what,
on the head.
and not on the head. And what those pads, they have a little label on them that says, do not open. Put backside next to the body, can be worn continuous, okay to share it with others. Put the pad in a baggie in a new baggie as needed. So it will have a do not message of some kind, and that's the one that was for pain, but not for any kind of metal implants or joints or anything like that. Okay. So you have, when you take water out of this, your intention is going to be, the reason we came up, one of the reasons we came up with putting everything on here, we said, okay, what if things are down and dirty and you've got to just get something out right now that's going to help people without a long process of, well, first you got to make this, and then you got to do this, and you got to do this. So the Gans water of these different things is in these vials, and all the combinations that Paul had put together. And so what you're going to do, and this is what my friend in Alaska is doing, she'll take a scoop out and she'll say, I'm making copper oxide, zinc, CH3, and CO2, and this is for a pain pad or a pain pin. Now, her neighbor has come back and said, would you please make some more of those pins? I want to give them to my friends. It works so well. And can I help you hook up your propane, and can we get your fireplace set for the winter, et cetera, et cetera. So she hasn't had time to do all these steps yet. What she's doing is a utilization of her intention with what was provided on this station. And when we started with this, we called it a food station. And now I just call it a plasma energy station, because if you have the first aid sheet and it says you use 10 drops of copper oxide or CO2 and 1 drop of this and 1 drop of this, when you scoop your water out, that is your intention. And she's having great success with the pads, she's having great success with the pens. And so again, it's the interaction of the individual with what they're doing. And plasma energy, it sounds a little airy-fairy or something, but it's just an energy form that we weren't educated in. That's all.
So the effect of the water in the station doesn't, if we don't want it to affect something, when you say it's intention, we
Yes.
just say it's not going to affect.
Right. I'm taking this, this, and this for the highest and best use of my body.
And it's not going to affect my knee or my
Right.
pacemaker or my head or my anything.
Right. Right.
Okay.
And you know, what Mr. Cash is trying to teach everybody is he says we have not been taught overall as a race that we are highly creative and that we have the creative abilities of the one who created us. And that has been
So it's
somewhat
discernment.
lacking in
It's
our
discernment too
information.
then.
Yeah, it's discernment. And then like I said, you know, we were sitting one day and as we're using it, I said, what are you having for lunch today? And you know, I don't know. And I said, well, and I looked the sheet over and I didn't see it on, how about Navajo tacos? And we had all the ingredients. So sure, let's have Navajo tacos. So Warren, question?
I have 2 questions. On this sheet, what is plasma energy? At the bottom, it's got the name of Mayron Keshi, or Kesh. What's the 1013-2018 after that?
Oh, that was what he said on that date. I was just giving him,
I see, okay.
yeah, the quote.
And then I don't understand what this menu is here. with all-
Well, that's everything that's what went into there's 2 vials on here. I can't even tell which ones they are.
6 and 13,
Okay.
they're numbered.
There's one that's a little more tan than all the other vials. And that was what came out of a very large jar that was the food Gans that Paul talked about from all the meals and how he processed it. But the thing is, we never physically interact with the water from the food Gans. The only interaction we have is with the plasma energy water in this little vial as it energizes the water here as we call for what we want. Okay? So,
Okay, now I got it.
yeah, so that's the way that will work. And, okay, you know what?
There are lots of uses for this technology. One is agriculture. In Ghana, they have a whole team set up with the university there. This is in Africa, developing technologies for use with agriculture. The use of this technology with agriculture eliminates the need for herbicides and insecticides, so that you don't have to put poisonous chemicals on the food that you're going to eat. So that's a huge advance. Some of the agricultural companies don't like it.
No kidding.
But eventually this technology will be known to the world and it'll be used worldwide. It may take a while, but it's coming. In that vein, Joe Dahlberg used the water on 2 different plants of the same thing. There was the same flowers planted here and the same flowers planted here. This one she watered with the CO2 water. This one she watered with just regular water. And Joe, tell us what the difference was in those two plants.
Oh, the watered one was huge, like double size. Plus it had block blooms all over it. The other one didn't have buds. Didn't have buds shooting out of it.
So,
Very noticeable. I took pictures for Lynn to see.
so an aspect of this, if this is used widespread in agriculture, it's going to increase the yields on the fields. Instead of getting 20 bushels per acre, you're going to be getting much, much more, maybe 30 or 40 bushels an acre.
The other thing they mentioned in the,
And cut costs for insecticides and herbicides.
and then the other thing he mentioned in the workshop, I just finished doing the notes on, it's the 141st. And by the way, all the notes I do are on transformicon.com, and that is, if you go to index and then you go to the center of the page, it'll say drafts, PDF, or docx, and those are all the notes I've done. And as Dr. Cornelius adds all the screenshot photos of drawings or whatever Mr. Kesh is talking about, we replace what I did with what he added to my notes. So you'll find, he started doing it at about 131, I think. He's from New Zealand, so another one of my friends from across the ocean, from other places. One thing that was in the notes this time was that when they're getting a greenhouse effect, and I thought of your greenhouse, Gene, he said, we are getting much better effect without a top over the greenhouse because the energy has more room to expand, and we're seeing that where we have the greenhouse effect with the plasma energy, it's having a year-round effect. So are things going to freeze? Are things going to burn up? Whatever season it might be. Okay, so let me let you...
Lynn, can I ask here what you had mentioned to me about how you started shaking your water?
Oh, right.
Or blending it or stirring it, it makes a difference?
That was a suggestion from Mr. Kesh. He said, you want to stir up the plasma more. And so when we take our water, the scoop out, it goes into the blender with the rest of the water that's going to fill up our cup, okay? And we blend it and activate it and then pour it in our glasses and drink it. And it's an activation.
Does the water that you add to the food station in the cup come from the pitcher or from the tap?
It comes from our, it
With
comes
the
from our
pads?
Berkey, from our water filter.
So it doesn't have to be water that has the pad, the Gans water?
No, and
No,
when it
it's
goes,
just fresh water.
and when it goes about halfway down, Paul will he'll add water to it. And he'll usually do it at night and let it sit overnight. since
Water
we-
from the tap added to it or
Uh-huh.
water from the pitcher?
From the Berkey, from our Berkey filter, yeah. One thing that Mr. Kish said that was really interesting was that the legs are where your immune system, would you say, resides?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they'll do specific treatments with the water on the legs for issues of the immune system. So there's just such a wealth of information in all the things I've been transcribing. It's kind of like overload. So I did ask this friend, would you go through and just put some of the uses down for me, and which she did. And of course now it's outdated because we've had maybe 3 more classes.
There's so much that we haven't talked about today. And one of the main aspects of all of this is the space technology. That's where all of this came from that you're learning about today, is from a study of space technology, because when they go into space, they can't take 5 or 6 more spaceships loaded with supplies to last for 20, 30, 40 years. So they're developing technology where they don't have to have a train load of food and another train load of toilet paper. These are things that are they're just not needed in space. So that's where all of this stuff you heard about today has come from, is the development of space travel. And it's not space travel like we know now with the rocket ships. It's plasmatic space travel that is done by the use of magnetic and gravitational fields of energy, not rockets. So that's just a very quick overview. You can get all the up-to-date information from this catchfoundation.org website.
So it isn't rocket science. Oh my.
Funny.
So one of the things I wanted to show you all is, and if anybody would like some, we've got this set of the pad and the baggie are to put on sore knees, etc., 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 with the exception of what we talked about with Kim. Okay? So I have those for some of you who might want those. I have these that say peace on them, and these would be the ones that you might want to put on either side of a pitcher, like a water pitcher, if you haven't already with some I've given you. And we have also found that sometimes I've given peace pads out and said, put it in your wallet, put it in your car, just put it wherever you want to be surrounded with a peaceful energy. Now these are cowboy strength, thanks to Helen. When I was talking about doing gloves, and she said, well, you know, get the cotton gloves the cowboys wear in the summer so they don't get rope burns. And so I went to Shipton's and got all of these. Well, they're all treated. Once they're treated, they will, even if you launder them, they will be fine. The plasma energy does not leave. Okay, so you can launder them and everything else. So we have the man size, okay.
It works for arthritic fingers. This hand, due to being on dialysis for 8 years before I got my kidney transplant, this hand was so stiff because the blood circulation had been cut off due to the different fistulas that I had in this arm for dialysis, that I couldn't close it. It was like a claw. Now, look at that. I can make a fist just like I could before. And along with the other things I'm doing, I wore one of those gloves. I haven't worn it now for a couple of weeks, but I would put it on in the evening when I was sitting there watching TV or reading, and it's loosened that hand up.
And then what we have, these are like inspector gloves. Say you're dealing in coins or something that you don't want to get oily fingerprints on, and you just order these. I ordered them in bulk off of Amazon or somewhere, and got, I think, 10 to 12 in a batch. So with these, because I'm doing a lot of typing with these notes and things, I've got one finger that's, I think it's my pointer finger, and it probably started getting arthritic from pointing it too much at different people over the years.
Sure.
And then when I'm going back and forth from a YouTube video to a document, I'm using the mouse so much that it really started hurting. So I just wear these gloves, I put them on and I type with them. And if my hands are really sore, I have a bed pair and I have a typing pair. And then if they get dirty, well, we just throw them in the washer and wash them. Now the other thing that Kesh said about using some of the Gans, including the CO2, and zinc is for emotion. So, you know, I figured, well, that can be the feel-good application. He said, if you put CO2 Gans, if you put CO2 on your socks, you will not get frostbite if you soak them. So sometimes a little over the top, so what I did is I took his t-shirts, all our gloves, all our hats, all our scarves, or gloves, and socks. And it took me a couple washer loads to do it. And so I put the washing machine water in, then we added the appropriate Gans, and we agitated it all and then let it sit. And then after it sat, you know, and I figure it was well soaked, then we spun it and I dried it and put everything away. Now when we wash them again, the energy will still be in them. It doesn't wash out. So we're in Montana, we're ready for winter. And one of the reasons I did his t-shirts is because his temperature, his body thermostat dropped the first time he ever had dialysis. And so he gets cold easily. And so I said, well, okay, let's try this on the shirts and see what they do. So if any of you would like to come up and get some of these other things, I've got the scarves if anybody has issues. I've suggested that, well, my mom has memory loss. The first set of scarves I sent to her, nobody can find. So then I sent some to a brother and said, would you please see that one of these at least gets put inside her pillowcase? You know, because she's probably going to forget to wear it. But, so that's what we're doing. And so like I said, I take the different scarves I find and I treat them. Now one of the things I do with the scarves from typing, when you sit there a long time and you're tasking, you know how you get like this? I just put a scarf around my neck and that has stopped that, where I'm getting really sore. Because usually if I'm typing one of his workshops, for every hour that he talks, it's going to take me about 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours to type, because I'm dealing with a bunch of foreign accents. Wow. And I'm replay, replay, replay. And sometimes in my notes you'll see a blank line or a question mark. 4 replays is all they get, and then I'm done. And it goes to the blank line. Sometimes Cornelius can fill it in, and sometimes he can't. So we're glad to share some of these with you guys if you want to just come up and do that. And then we'll take questions.
That people who heal by transmitting the healing energy to somebody else, they do it through plasmatic fields.
Yes.
That would be my guess,
And I don't know
that is
that
true.
they know that that's what they're tapped into. They just sense the energy field.
Right,
And they are willing to be the transmitter.
right.
And so they give themselves permission to be the healing transmitter. They are that healing stick. And there's huge intention involved in that healing process. And,
That's correct.
yeah.
Well, you used to sense the energy fields around, like when you were doing the acupuncture on the horses and the animals. And then I remember something that you used to say, that sometimes you'd pick up an animal, a lot of times for weight. Let's see, this guy is, okay, 4 pounds, whatever. But you'd feel a warmth, like a buzzing in your hands.
Yeah, I practiced veterinary medicine for 30 years. And at one point I was working on the racetrack with race horses, and I was using acupuncture for a lot of applications. And after you use it for a while, you make a connection with your subject, with the animal, with the racehorse, and you can actually see the acupuncture points and feel with your hands the energy of where to exactly place the needles. Now, if any of you who have been around racehorses know that they are bred to be excitable and high-strung. A lot of them. Most of them are very high-strung. And if you poke them with a needle, they're going to be jumping all over the place. And they're going to be dancing around and trying to get away from that needle. When you get the right energy spot with an acupuncture needle, it slides right in. You don't even feel the resistance of the skin, and the horse doesn't even feel it. He may twitch a little, you know, you can see a little twitch at the spot, but he's not jumping around. And I've treated some stallions on the racetracks that are hard to handle. I mean, they have to go in there with chains and put a lip chain in them to even get anything done with them at all. They're just so high strung, and they've been in this 10 by 10 stall most of their life on the racetrack that they're just anything will set them off. And I've gone in the stall with those and made the connection, and when you get the first acupuncture needle in them, they calm down. And you can walk around them and rub them, and you know, they don't get excited and they don't try and hurt you. Some racehorses try to hurt you. They actually do. You have to be real careful around them. You have to have a handler in there with you. All the vets don't work on them by themselves. They go in there with a handler, someone who knows the horse and can handle him. And with the acupuncture, once you get one needle in the right energy point, it just calms everything down, and the handler can relax and you can relax, and you go ahead and get your work done. I used to treat some horses for horseshoers that were, they wouldn't stand still. Instead of doing a horseshoe job on a racetrack is pretty quick. It doesn't take that shoer long because he knows the horse. He doesn't, and they change shoes very often, so they don't need to do a lot of trimming. But instead of doing a 30-minute job, sometimes it would take them 2 hours because they couldn't control the horse. So I'd put 2 acupuncture needles in, one on each side of the neck, and the horse would just stand there while the shoer did his job, and he'd say thank you, and I'd bill the trainer. So if it's the same thing, you're working with plasmatic fields that you work with this energy.
Right. Well, that makes really sense to me. I have a daughter-in-law who does energy work on horses, chiropractic. She's a chiropractic healer, and it's just amazing to watch because she'll find those points, but she doesn't use any needles. She just uses very slight pressure, and when the horses have learned who she is, my horses will hear her voice and come over to the fence, and they'll go, it's this shoulder right here. Like this. And all the affect of their licking their lips and dropping their eyes roll back, their ears get a little lobby, they kind of lean, and they'll let her know where they need to be worked on. It's just the most amazing thing. Yeah.
Cool.
Any other questions?
Does it matter if you store them in glass or plastic in the sun, or should they be in the dark after you make the water?
I wouldn't expose it to direct sunlight. That's just me. I don't know the true answer to your question, but for me, I would not expose it to direct sunlight. I would keep it in the shade. But I don't think you need to cover it with a black drape or anything. I mean, the light is not gonna ruin it.
And then it doesn't eat through the plastic or anything, or it
No,
doesn't matter if it's in plastic?
no, if it's in plastic, that's fine. In fact, a lot of the pitchers that we put the pads on are clear plastic. If you use those pads of Lynn on a water pitcher for drinking water, be sure that it's clear plastic or glass. Not a dark red or something opaque. Question?
I have a couple. I have a Brita pitcher, it's clear plastic, and in the top, of course, it has the place for the filter, the white, and I have the filter, so I put it in there. So I have the little vial in the bottom of the pitcher, and the filter in the regular Brita unit, the white thing. But it's weird because when I pour a big glass of water out, we do this 2 or 3 times, then the whole pitcher needs filling. Is that how I'm supposed to be using it? I pour
Yeah.
a whole, because you make it sound like you just take a little of the water out of that pitcher and then add tap water.
That's what we do, yes.
Okay, so,
That's out of the energy station. That we're adding water.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's out of this.
oh,
This
okay, I
tub.
wanted
Yeah.
to make sure. And then another thing I did in a hurry was grab a glass pitcher that's corrugated. In other words, it's not smooth. It has like ribs all over. Does that interfere with anything?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Did you want to mention about the vials? If they wanted to just give, oh, one thing about the vials before
You can do that.
Okay. So we're thinking, what if there was a disaster? Now what do? We got 2 cats. So Paul made a Gans out of the cat food. And so their drinking water has the cat food, the same water we use out of the station. I have a little thing that is their own jar like this. And then I take some off the top into a little dropper bottle, and I just drop her some in a refill little pitcher I have for their, I have a little container that has a bubbler in it. Cats have their human trained very well. They like bubbling water. So I add that every day, and I cut back on their food. Now, they don't like seeing the empty bottom of the dish. If they see the blue color of the bottom, they're upset. But if I just put a little bit of food in there, they're fine. So they're eating about half the food I gave them before. And then Barbara, I said, well, we better cover the dogs. So we're making a Gans out of some dog food I got from Barbara. Same idea, and so it's a separate jar, and it's not, I didn't want a bunch of people running around town hissing or barking, so. So it's not on the main energy station. It could be, because it's all intention, but we have it separately, because I just thought, we got to take care of our 4-legged buddies too.
And all of this information on how to make that food station for yourself is on this sheet, and it's on these websites. If you don't want to do it and you want one, you can buy it from us. But that's not our purpose for being here. Our purpose for being here is to give you the information so that you can do it yourself.
Kesh, I thought it was really important what you explained today, so that we finally altogether leave the state of schizophrenic state of mind about matter, Gans, and plasma, and how the fields interact, how they become, how they tighten up, how they interact, the magnetical and gravitational. That thing that you said is so fundamental to understand in order to, get on with this knowledge. Is it possible that you can explain that in a way kids also can understand?
First of all, I have a good news for you. We are opening the Children's School of the Keshe Foundation in September, October of this year. So we will have children classes that the knowledge is transferred by the knowledge seekers who can teach children here in Italy. The whole thing is that what we have in our lives, we are used to, is a matter state. We have everything we see in a way we tangibly touch. We call it matter. And this matter is made of, doesn't matter what it is, a plant, a globe, plastic, made of structure which is little balls tightly packed together. These are tightly packed, what I call plasmas, but you have to understand in every meter, if I can get this about the meter, is that many of these little things, more or less, next to each other. We call them a matter state. But what we do, we have found a way that instead of them being packed together, we allow them to open up, and we have more or less, if it was hydrogen, half of it, because the other half, they need about the same gap open. Here is 10 to the power of 9. Here is the power of 4.5, maybe 5. Because now these are like magnets. Magnets, when you put magnets next to each other, they need a distance. These are exactly like this, next to each other, one next to the other. But when you put them together, if you have, you see they can't stick together in one way or another. They create a gap. So there is a distance between them. So this distance allows these, I'll take these away from here that you don't make a mistake. I'll put it here. These are that many atoms. We call it 10 to the power of 9. That's what is called nano. It means you have single atom separated from each other in a nano state. So now, if you heat it, or if you put a current into it, these single things which were packed together now become separated and become like this. But if you give them another condition, that you put them in a salt, for example, salt water, now the wire is still there, but now they go free walking. They're not attached to the bar, because don't forget here, they're all attached to the metal. So now what you have is a free plasma. They're free, they can float anywhere, and this is what you see. We have a wire. This is a wire, a copper wire. We treated it to make it single atoms. It becomes black, like this. Now, those little balls are exactly what you see there on it. When you see them black, it's at least about 30,000 layer of them on top of each other. And then this is the top line, this is the second line. And then when we put them to salt water, they become this color. This is called copper oxide Gans material. So now you are, what I call, for you to understand better, you are in a green state. Now you're free. We collect you. We can collect it as a liquid. So when we do this, now you're in a bottle. Don't forget, when you're in this state, every single one of these is exactly like a sun. Radiates continuously energy out. Continuous flow of energy. Non-stop flow of energy. So now you have the Gans. Now the Gans means actually the sun, a free sun. But because it is so small, we can put a lot of them in it, in a bottle. So when you look at this thing here, as a Gans is billions of the suns, but in a small packages. It's like children and the adults. These are the children and the babies' sun. So what we do now, we learned, is when we put them in there, we put them in a sphere like a sun, and we rotate them, they release their energy. These little packs here, now because the sun that radiates, they release their energy as a magnetic field. And then if we can collect these energies the way we want, we can have an energy of, let's say, sweet, we can have an energy of a car, or we can have energy of a banana. Because now it's free, we can make anything we like from it, even though it started from a copper wire. It became a nano of a copper wire, and then it became a Gans of it. Now it's a free. So now we can return it back to whatever state of matter we like it to be, because now it's free. It's like when you make a dough. You have a flour, you decide if it's going to be a bread, a cake, a muffin, or whatever you like. Because now is in its fundamental free structure. So if you understand, we came down from this to this. We managed to gather it, and then we come back to the matter. The cycle of creation is complete. Now, here you had no say in what it would be, because it was only copper. When you transfer it to this, you can have anything, any matter, a state of energy, food, material, motion, whatever you need, you can use it for. And this is what we've been teaching for all this time. The cycle of life, but in the universal condition, not in the life of the man. So, if that makes sense to you, if you understand it, you understand everything to do with plasma technology. You are more plasmatically scientists than the professors in universities. Because for them to understand this, it's a big problem. Very big problem. So now you see how things are. And now you see how the progress of knowledge and science, we used to heat this up, manipulate it, make wires, make cups and plates from it. Now the knowledge has come to the level that you don't need to manipulate it and only have a plate and copper plate or copper fork and knife or copper toy. Now you can change it and make whatever you like out of it. Even if you want to make a plastic toy, if you can convert the energy to plastic level, you have plastic. You want to make bread out of it, you can, because if you put the knowledge right how to package it, it will turn out what to be. In a way, with the plasma technology, we free man from the shackle of the matter state. So you're free. You can make anything you like, any position in the universe. You go to Mars, you want to have a wooden toy, you have a copper wire, or you have a plasma, you understand how to make wood, you can make a wooden toy. The knowledge is so simple that the new generation of the children will swim in it like a fish, and the old have to fight against it because it means they cannot swim. That's the biggest difference in the new knowledge. Because we've been too much attached to one status. We can't accept that we can have everything we want.